Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spiritual Readiness and the Time of the Shift. I had a recent conversation with a student not long ago, about a week ago, and she asked some really interesting question as it regards to the path of neutrality, which is the ascension mechanic that I teach. She asked if being neutral would not disconnect her in some ways to human emotions, which is a very valid question. Because when you think of neutrality, you think of the Buddhist concept of equanimity, where you try to remain even-keeled with all of your reaction and your emotions, and how that relates to what I'm trying to teach. Now, there are two things that I want to bring up here. The first one is a difference that exists between Eastern yoga and Western yoga. In the East, generally speaking, although there are multiple paths and tradition, the student is trying to leave the earth and earthly experience and ascend into the heavens or nirvana or go into enlightenment. Okay? In the West, generally speaking, the student and the candidate and the seeker is trying to do the reverse. They are trying to bring ascendance to the earth. They are trying to bring spirituality to earth. They are trying to bring heaven to earth. It leads to the same place, but it's two different directions. So you have to follow a yoga that matches your general propensity and your DNA. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the definition of what neutrality is. Neutrality, the way I define it, is not a disconnect to the emotions, feelings, and injustices of the world. It is actually accelerated conflict resolution. When I begin to teach any student, I start first by teaching them emotional intelligence. How to quickly process, understand, and manage all feelings. See, there's a problem in our head as we were trained and domesticated that there's so-called good feeling and bad feelings. All feelings are trying to tell us something about ourselves. So the idea is to treat all of them equal and to go into your body and have a conversation with self to try to figure out what is the treasure that this sensation that you're feeling is trying to tell you about you and how you're processing the input that's coming from the outside. Okay? So that part is extremely important. And then how, if there is some sort of false belief that's there, how do you take that false belief and change it with something that's more aligned with higher consciousness and spiritual development, right? So once you've done that, what you're doing is that you're not denying emotions, you're not suppressing it, you're not dulling yourself up by being numb to what's happening around you. Rather, what you're doing is that you're feeling everything completely fully and accepting it gloriously, every emotions that you have, but trying to understand completely what does this reaction, this emotional reaction, says about you. Okay? And how, and is that reaction proper for the situation at hand? And if it is improper, how do you evolve and grow past it? How do you transcend it and express a higher version of that emotion? Because all emotion have lower octave and higher octaves. So it's a process of fully engaging and with your feelings completely. In fact, I'm going to go further and say, no one can ascend without being completely human. Listen carefully to what I'm telling you, because there are important keys here. There are people who are approaching the spiritual path and following the life of saints, of or good spiritual leaders, and they are looking at these beings and putting them on a pedestal very high, and they are looking at their life and they try to emulate that without having a bridge or a connector to get to that place. And because of this, they cut themselves off from the emotional self, thinking that it's incorrect, and they go toward, in the direction of the yoga of the East, they try to elevate themselves to that higher level. Whereas what I'm saying to you is that the path I'm trying to teach is different. You have to engage in your feelings completely. You have to engage completely in your humanity. And as you do, you evolve, you grow, and you become truly divine, incorporating the entire human experience. And I'm going to go further and say this. The vulnerability that you're feeling because of the way you're feeling raw and emotional is not a weakness. It's a superpower. Because with that vulnerability, you can actually become reachable. Once you've mastered the emotion that's causing you to be vulnerable, you have now in hand a superpower to help others who are as vulnerable. Whereas if you're in this cloud or this bubble of transcendence, and you've never experienced the struggle of someone, let's say, having an addiction problem, or someone having dealing with rage, with anger, and you've never dealt with it, you're going to have a hard time advising them and trying to tell them how to get to where you are. But if you have experienced it personally in your life, you will have the language, you'll have a way of communicating that will allow the person who is disempowered to find a way out of this pit that they find themselves in. This is what I'm saying, that vulnerability, that emotional disempowerment is actually a superpower. It's a superpower for me. Now, I know there are multiple other ascension paths. I'm not saying what I'm teaching is for everyone. Okay, as a matter of fact, I'm teaching all of this for free on a Facebook group called the Wisdom Council. And all you have to do is join the group. I will give you from A to Z everything you need for this ascension mechanic. But it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do this. I've taught this already to 12 people. I'm now reaching out with this effort on Facebook to try to teach it to 144. And in the process of doing this, I will be able to have people sending to shoulder with me as planetary leaders and begin to have a team to help humanity ascend and elevate into higher consciousness. But I am being very clear, although the training is for free, but it is not for everyone because it requires a commitment in time and effort. There's homework, there's exercise, there are all these things that you're supposed to do. And if you're not prepared to do any of the above and you just want an intellectual thing, you will drop out. You will not be interested. Your interest will fade out very quickly. But if you're really willing to put the effort in, I can teach you what you need to know. It's a free offer. I offer it freely. And I expect that you will accept it also freely. I have no other interest or agenda except that I'm trying to help humanity elevate and ascend so that we collectively can take humanity into the new earth. I hope this piques your interest. Please like this video and also subscribe to the channel. And I will speak to you next week. Thank you for listening.